Congressman Brady, you'll be first on this question. Thomas Jefferson favored term limits for members of Congress. Should Congress be term limited as the President is, and why?
I think the American public ought to get a chance to vote on a constitutional amendment on term limits. And I've voted for every one of those amendments that's been offered by a Republican, not any Democrat Congresses up in Washington, D.C. And I think we ought to have that debate. Our founding fathers did debate it, the Constitutional Convention. They decided not to do it. But thankfully, at the ballot box, we have term limits every 2 years for members of Congress, and I never forget who I work for. Secondly, I do think bringing in fresh ideas is great. But if you have the fresh conservative ideas along with experience, you've got even a stronger representative in Washington, D.C. And I also think when I've now learned through experience just how deep this bureaucracy is, just how far into your personal lives our government is, and when you see these bureaucrats who can ignore what Congress has passed, I mean, literally, they'll ignore it. And I mean, when I pass legislation like to protect teachers against frivolous lawsuits, when they maintain order and discipline the court, I had to go into the administration and force them to administer that law to get our lawyers out of the classroom so our teachers can teach and our kids can learn. But what I think we really need, and I'd love to have the Tea Party ideas on this, we need term limits on bureaucrats. That's what will really turn this country around. And if you've got some ideas on how best we can do it, I'll be your champion.
I like the idea of term limits. Unfortunately, they've been declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. So we either have to challenge the Supreme Court, which I'm willing to do, or we have to get a constitutional amendment. I think the state should, I'm all for a constitutional amendment on term limits. Term limits make sense. Just because of what we've seen, the result of where we are now, of people 30, 40 years, 14 years in office, they become entrenched. They stop listening to the people that call them and tell them, say no when we say no. They're our representatives. We have a representative constitutional republic. That's what we are. We're not a social democracy. We're not a socialist state. We don't want to be an Eastern European socialist democracy. Term limits is not the only solution to all problems, but it is certainly not a bad idea to keep people closer to and the government closer to the people, because the best government is that which governs least. And we need people in office that aren't there to be a lifetime politician, but instead to get something done. Go there with a mission to get something done and then leave and have a career. That was what we were. We were citizen legislators. That was what the founders meant us to be. Limited government.
I do believe in term limits. I believe that we need a constitutional amendment to limit our congressman's ability, not our congressman, all congressmen's ability to be in Congress for more than X number of years. I've actually been polling people when I walk around door to door. I ask everybody, what do you think about term limits? Resoundingly, oddly enough, people would like to see term limits. And when you ask them how many, the number changes. It changes from 2 to 3 to 4 terms, and their reasoning changes and so on and so forth. But I saw the trend that everybody really just wanted somebody who was going to go to Washington, get the job done, and come back home. And when I saw that, I went ahead and signed a contract with myself, with my wife, and my family, and we're going to put it on our webpage saying that I won't come back after 4 terms. I won't come back after 4. Our congressman, like he just told you, has voted to limit himself to 6 terms, even though it didn't pass. It didn't go through back in 97, I believe. We're running for term number 8 right now. And either you believed in the principle of the term limit or you didn't. And it's time to put people in office with fresh ideas. Not ideas that have been developed by 14 years of working in Washington, but ideas that come from education and experience in the district. And we can get somebody new there, and we can term limit them. We can get other new ideas there. But the election comes down to always who is the best person for the job these 2 years, not who is the best person to keep there for a long period of time to get as much experience as possible. It's who can solve this set of problems for these 2 years. Then in 2 years, you can run again. If you can still solve those problems, you can go back. But after a while, you can't think that you're the best person for the job all the time. There have to be other people in a district of 700,000 that have better ideas than you sometimes.
I think of the two parties, the Democrats would probably never, ever go for term limits. Okay? You know, they've been there. Some of them, I think they're just glued to their seats up there, and, you know, they just couldn't get off of it if they tried. The Republicans are a little more likely to go for term limits, you know, but we have the opportunity to limit the term of our members of Congress or Senate every single election, you know, and that's what you need to do. Politically, realistically, term limits probably aren't going to happen. You know, that's just a fact of life, and we have to adjust our strategy for that, and that's why we have to elect new people. If you are for term limits, then go out there and start supporting people who are challenging incumbents, because that's the only way you're going to send the message of limiting the term of people in office. Thank you.